Good morning, everybody. How we doing? Yeah. Wiped out? I couldn't imagine why. Goodness, I tell you. Yeah. I might not have slept the very best last night myself, and I'm not sure if that had to do with staying up too late or reading the news or simply the people who were partying in the room next to me. But that's kind of the thing that we all look forward to at conferences like this. And it's very rare that we all have such time that we get to spend together. Time, by the way, being, that's right, the question of the hour. I am very pleased to kick things off this morning introducing Gunter Kletschke, who is a fascinating gentleman and who I've enjoyed speaking with quite a lot. He's a geophysicist whose pioneering research in planetary magnetism, impact cratering, and space instrumentation has advanced both Earth and planetary sciences. He's got a tremendous amount of experience that includes with the space program and, of course, also collaborations with the Comet Research Group. But today, I'm so intrigued because despite our incredible discussions recently about electromagnetism and ball lightning and other areas of mutual interest, one that we share and which we'll be talking about today is time itself. Please make welcome Gunter Kletschke.
Thank you everyone for coming. And I appreciate that you came here this morning so you can see if you can twist our brain a little bit or put this idea around. So I will be, let me see if I can operate this. Yep. My journey to this topic, because some of you may know that I've been involved, for example, in this Younger Dryas boundary and the impacts in various topics. And so how does this connect to 3D time? You may think about it. And we've heard various lectures yesterday that they were talking about our sun, right? And some of you may know that during the, for example, Younger Dryas, there was some weird isotopic signatures that were also thought that has to do with the cosmic radiation or our sun or some kind of a irregularity with our sun. And so I was then looking into okay, what's our sun is like? And then, of course, you come with this 11 to 12 year periodicity of the sunspot cycle. And then I was just looking, let's see, if I would look at all these stars that are about the same distance from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, do they also have approximately 11 to 12 year periodicity? And I was finding, it looks, there is a 13, 14, that there was some similarity. And so then I started to look on, on the galaxy center, like the black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And this way, kind of slowly, brought me to a Stephen Hawking and talking thinking about the idea that he was exploring. And then I have a grandson, and I was trying to introduce him some fairy tales, and one of the fairy tales was science fiction, and it was about a king, and the king was giving someone a three-dimensional piece of time, and that's kind of triggered my interest, what is it, three-dimensional piece of time? And so this is the way how I started to explore a little bit deeper to this idea, and so that's what I would like to talk about. Let's see, and I want to make sure. So the basic idea is in here, right? That we have, and also I prepared these kind of structures that you can see in here that you may recognize. They are from the pool. When you need to swim, but I figured out this is a good, in order to introduce you the idea that I'm talking about. So basically on one side you can see you have a regular space where we have a x1, x2, x3, and this is a conventional reality where we have a one dimension, this is in green, as a time, right? And we don't really like a differentiated, if how the time is changing in terms of the direction where you are going in a three-dimensional space. And so that's what we like to know of. But then when we go like to cosmology, we'll see that there are like various problems that people are trying to solve, and that has to do with the scale and how we perceive the scale and the physical reality or physical laws when you go to the cosmological scale and you are now dealing with the theory of relativity, with like a gravitational field, gravitational collapse, or when you go the other direction, when you go like a more to very tiny scale where everything seems to be quantized. And so what I'm offering is this coordinate system, which is on my left side. And you can see that in this, what you have here, you also have a T1, T2, T3, which are now axis of time. So now, what does it mean, like axis of time? And you can also, you have just one dimension, which is x dimension. So it's kind of inverse of this, right? In here you have three dimensions, like a regular space dimension, and time that's kind of like the background of it. And in here you have a three time dimension, but the space is the background of it in all directions. So you have a one dimension space, and basically the time space in this case is used to be projecting this one dimension into like these three different entities of time. So it's, of course it's very different because we are accustomed of this thing, right? We never think that the time could have three dimensions, and it's actually like a projection of one dimension into these time dimensions. So, wow. And so here's like a details how it works and how I initially proposed this idea. And so know that you have a coordinate system, and there are three different dimensions, but each of the dimensions has a little connotation, meaning that it has to do with the scale. And so when you look at T1 is the scale where it's a quantum scale, so it's a very tiny dimension. The dimensions that we are familiar with, we are basically familiar with the dimensions between like a quantum scale, the galactic scale, and that's the interaction scale where this is like a dimension that we are familiar with all the time, where we think we are familiar how the physical law are interacting with that specific time dimension. And once you go a little further, you go to much larger dimensional scale, then I'm proposing that there is a transition that another dimension becomes more dominant, and that's a T3 or cosmological scale dimension. So and because of this idea, there were actually two papers that came out, and that also gave me the courage to try to present it. These are the two references to the papers that just were published this year. And you can see the first one is a three-dimensional time, a mathematical framework for fundamental physics. That was published earlier this year. And then later, I just tried to figure out, because my main kind of a topic or the idea that I do is a magnetism, like a magnetic field. And the magnetic field is due to charge and how the charge is defined. And so I wanted to also to see how the magnetic field would be projected through this idea of three-dimensional time. And that's why I was then trying to go into charge as a topological property in three-dimensional time. So some of the realization that I found interesting, because once you redefine or put it into mathematics, into equation, then it looked like that the mass, like each of you, right, you think, oh, you are used to know how many pounds you weigh or how many kilograms. But when you go into this kind of a different way of defining the space and time, then the mass appear with the different units. Suddenly your units would not be like in terms of the energy, but it would be in terms of time. So you can imagine like each of the a mass which is in this space is basically a temporal anomaly or some sort of like a rotation in this three temporal space, which was something that, I know, to me it looked like very interesting, that everything, what could be primary in this universe, it's not the mass, but it's actually the time. The time is more dominant or leading the idea that this is the really everything behind the existence or the reasoning of our universe. That I spoke a little bit about the magnetic field, but I will talk about it a little bit later. Let's go further. And so one of the things that appears to come out from these equations, that in particle physics there is a phenomena which is like a generations of different particles. There are neutrinos or some quarks that have same properties, but what is different that there is a vastly change in the mass of that particle. That there is the first generation that, for example, electrons, up, down, quarks belong to it. And then there's a second generation of these. So for electrons would be the muon, and the third generation would be a tau particle. And so all of these generations have very similar properties, except the mass is very different, and also the stability in time is very different. So based on this, this is something that was really difficult to solve in a classical physics. What would be the reason for having these three generations to be present? And so from the point of view of three-dimensional time, it appears to be just a topological law, that it just comes out from these three dimensions as a result of that. We have really a different dimensions that are related to in a different dimensional scale, and that dimensional scale is defining which dimensions is becoming dominant. Okay. And so what you see on this slide, you can see there are two coordinate system, x, y, z, and it just is defining the left-handedness and right-handedness. So on the right side, you can see there's a right hand, and usually when you go from x to y, your thumb is showing the z direction, and that's defined the chirality of this coordinate system. Of course, you can also define the coordinate system with your left hand. So when you see the left hand, you go with your fingers from x to y, and your thumb of your left hand would show the z direction. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this, that in particle physics, there is this mystery of parity violation problem, or because normally parity appears to be something that should be something very basic, and if there is a right-handedness, there should exist also the left-handedness. But we know that in interactions in the atom or the forces that exist, one of the interactions are weak forces, and what was found that the weak interactions are only left-handed, that there is no equivalent or no evidence that in our universe there would be right-handed weak interaction that would take place. And so this has been bothering physicists for like a long time. It's still bothering them because there is not really like a clear solution why the right-handedness is missing. And so when we look at the system, so tell me, can you tell me, is this right-handed or left-handed? Right, there's an X, Y, right, and you go with your fingers, and your fingers show the X, the third axis. But of course, I can change this axis, right, and I could make a left-handed coordinate system very easily. And now when we look at this system, which is this temporal system, if you look at it, can you recognize what's the handedness on this one? Right, you go from T1 to T2, and your thumb is showing the T3 with your left hand. And so what's interesting about the temporal coordinate system is that there is also a definition of the beginning of time, which will be somewhere in the origin. And from the beginning of time, you have all these three dimensions. The time is just changing from the time zero, and it's like a vector quantity. And which means that if you have our universe chirality is defined by the coordinate system, right? If you have these like three different directions of time, then there is a defined handedness of that system. And so if you define like a left-handedness of this coordinate system, then it will be very clear that if you go to, like for example, this weak interaction problem, that you, by definition, you would only have the left-handed weak interaction. So this chirality problem is becoming solved just by the geometry, that by just giving the three temporal dimensions, the time, you have a defined chirality, and therefore it shows that you would never find any right-handed weak interactions because they would be against the system or universe that we are living in. So that's another advantage of this approach, trying to substitute the spatial coordinate system with the temporal coordinate system. And this is like a third advantage, that we have this quantum mechanics, and on one side where we have like a physics that are defined in very tiny dimensional scale. And then you have the opposite side of the coin, which is the cosmological space, where you are solving like a general relativity, where you have these like a large spatial dimensions and large speeds, large scales. And the realm of physics is really difficult, to connect the two together. So there was various, you probably remember, there is a string theory, which is trying to use extra dimensions in order to figure out how the physics could connect the quantum mechanics with the general relativity. So the advantage of this 3D time theory is that you don't require those extra dimensions in order to have this connection between the quantum physics and general relativity. That everything appears to be just a topological solution of having the three temporal dimensions, where you are projecting into these three temporal dimensions just one like a spatial dimension. And in here I would maybe mention one thing which is kind of bothering about the the realm of general relativity is like appearance of the dark matter and dark energy. As you probably remember, dark matter it's supposed to be there in order to predict like a rotation of the galaxies. The galaxies are just rotating very much faster in terms of their like outside part of the galaxies, which would be then it would be just the visible mass that you see in a galaxy. However, if you have this approach of the 3D time, then this time or this dark matter is actually could be represented by these different dimensions, and therefore it would be just a topological solution which would be easy to connect between the very small scale of quantum mechanics with the general relativity. Okay, and since I know that this topic maybe, can maybe leave you like uncertain, how to imagine the three-dimensional time, I just would like to provide like a simple experiment. I mean, just to get into the bottom of this, what does it mean, right? So if you, for example, you can just like put your hand like in front of you, like to the left. Yeah, why don't we all do it, right? So, and now we can just slowly move it from the left to the right, right? So if we move it from the left to the right, this is the time dimension that we are familiar with, right? That's how we imagine the time as like a linear scale. And so now we will try to add like a second like a dimensions. And so what we do, we'll start again moving, but in this case we'll start to do like a sinusoidal motion, right? So we are still moving right from left to the right, but in this case we are adding like another like a degree of motion. So that's like imagining that there's actually a second like a dimension. And now what do we do to add the third like a dimension of this time, right? Because we already know this is a linear. Right now we are adding a second like a degree, and the third would be that while we are moving our hand from left, that you start to rotate your wrist like this. So you rotate up and rotate down and up and down. And so now you can see that now we have like a different like a motion. So this could be like an analogy how you could imagine all these like a three different dimension of time and how you could try to navigate through that time. So another way of thinking about it is and we talk about it, if you imagine like you are in the ocean, like this fish is the ocean, you have your 3D space, right? You can navigate through the space as you are a fish. You can go up and down because when you are in the ocean, there is a buoyancy which allows you to cancel the gravity, so you can feel like in space. That's why the astronauts are practicing their activities in the water, because there is this buoyancy that allows them to feel like they are in a weightless state. So similar, when the fish is moving through the water, it appears the space to be like a natural, but the water has its property, right? It has hydrogen, it has oxygen, there's some oxygen dissolved in the water, which allows the fish to breathe and to get oxygen. So for fish, it appears to be very natural, like to navigate through the ocean, but it's not without thinking of the exact like structure of that environment where the fish is swimming. And so it's not thinking about the like a chemistry of the water. So it's similar, like we are in this space and we feel like the time is so natural, and we think, oh, it's so simple, it's something that we don't have to think about. But you can try to, like the fish, maybe could try to figure out about the chemistry of the water, that you can try to think maybe the time is not as as simple. Maybe there is some twist to it, and maybe there is some importance, how the time is structured. So that's another like analogy that it's just trying to invert our thinking like differently. And so these are like the key advantages that I try to summarize on this slide. And so the first thing is it eliminates the need for exotic particles that the experiment failed like to detect. That means, for example, try to figure out what's the reason for the dark matter, right? The dark matter is it has significant mass, but we cannot really figure out what's the composition of the dark matter. But once you have this view that you could see the space and energy through this time framework, then it allows you to have a mass energy to be oriented in these different directions, because the mass, as I said, is represented by rotation through this three-dimensional time space, and therefore you can, in quotes, hide some of the mass, which would be creating the gravity field, but the electromagnetic field would be completely missing. So therefore, there would be only gravity signature, but you would not have any electromagnetic evidence of the dark matter. So no need for the exotic particles to figure out what's the reason for generating the gravity field that appears to be at the edges of the galaxies. One thing is that unifies the dark matter and dark energy manifestation in the same temporal space. Another concept which is being discussed in cosmology is dark energy, and that has to do with the expansion of the universe, and there was always this non-fitting, because there was a more than a 10 to 120 orders of magnitude difference if you wanted to connect the quantum physics with the cosmological scale and find out where is a dark energy from. But in terms of the three-dimensional temporal space, it allows you to use this cosmological dimensions, the T3, for a long-term dimension, and you can just get solution which seems to make just geometrical sense. And so there is predictions that once you assume that this would be the reality, that you could look for certain signatures as a result of temporal dimension interactions. And so the predictions that are coming from this theory is, for example, there is some resonances for neutrinos that appears to have a certain a topological significance, and so you could derive certain constant and say what these constant would be. Another thing is the prediction of the cosmic acceleration, and that has to do with the dark energy. And one other things are the temporal shadows, because normally when you have a three-dimensional object and when you shine light on it, you can see a shadow, right? But the shadow is really difficult to predict because it shows you just a collapse of the three dimensions into the two dimensions, and therefore, depending how the three-dimensional object is moving, the shadow appears to be moving without any sense, because you are not aware of the third dimension. So that's another advantage of solving these temporal shadows. Is this drinkable? There was this cup of water, and I wasn't sure if I can drink it. Okay? No? Okay. So, in this table, I try to summarize some of the. Thank you. So while I'm drinking water, you can try to digest this a number of different approaches where you have a like a different challenge, like a quantum gravity. Generation problem, we talk about the generation of the particles, the dark matter or energy, and unification of forces and cosmological singularity. Those are the challenges, and there are different approaches that are trying to solve these specific challenges. Like a standard model and general relativity is the first column, then the string theory is the second, the third is loop quantum gravity, and the fourth is this 1 plus 3 structure, where the 3 marks the 3 time dimension, and 1 is this 1 space dimension. And so for quantum gravity, the standard model has an incomparable formalism to explain the quantum gravity. String theory requires these like a large number of dimensions and like a supersymmetry that some of the dimensions appears to be like a collapsed one another. The thing is, this requirement of extra dimensions has to do with this chirality problem, because the chirality is this left-handedness versus right-handedness. And in order to solve that problem, there was this need to create, sometimes they call it like a mirror dimensions, that there was a 3 regular dimensions or 3-dimensional like a world where you have the left-handed interaction, but then you would have another 3 dimensions that would be basically representing mirror dimensions to our 3-dimensional space, and that would be where you would have a right-handed interactions. And there was just as an example, one thing that I am studying is also Tunguska, which is the Siberian explosion about in 1908, and there is about 3 or 4 papers that are trying to explain that the reason for Tunguska has to do with the so-called mirror matter. Mirror matter meaning is this extra matter that are in this other 3 dimensions, and because there was a postulation that when this extra matter living in these mirror dimensions is interacting with our regular matter, there is a coefficient which allows those 2 quantities, it's like a dark matter and regular matter, are interacting, and that could be like a trigger, the Tunguska explosion. So that's another like a way, or an example where you have something here, something physically that is happening on Earth, but the phenomena or the conditions or the surrounding measurements that are trying to figure out what actually happens are so difficult that you are just trying to reach into like a different theories or different concept in order to explain the absence of any kind of a meteorite or like particles, and explain that specific explosion that took place. So so in this table, it shows in the last column that the quantum gravity appears to be just, everything has to do with the geometry. So if you look at the last column, right, all these 5 different challenges are somehow solved with the topology. That is a temporal topology or geometric unification, simple geometric principle, and so that's the main reason is that you are just making the 3 dimensions of time. There was one thing that, the first thing that I tried, right, I didn't come up with the 3 dimensions right away. First I tried to solve it only for 2 dimensions, but 2 dimensions did not allow to solve this chirality problem. So then I was trying to use these equations for a 3-dimensional space, and everything appears to be worked perfectly. But once I also attempted to do like a 4 dimensions, but once you added another extra dimensions that the solutions became unstable and very complex. So to me, this 3 dimensions appear to be the most convenient in order to, if you are trying to add like a more temporal dimensions to time. And so this is like a slide that kind of like a summary slide that there was this mystery that appears to be like where is the dark matter, what's the problem with the chirality. And there was this one time that I just had this idea that why don't we try to add these extra 2 temporal dimensions, and it appears that most of the problem appears to be now solvable. So it's just one some example that sometimes by looking at the problem from a different angle, you can find a solution that appears to be more practical. And so this is the end, so I went quickly through this so I can allow some maybe more time for questions, because I know this may be a difficult topic to digest. And I also want to thank Stephanie Mark and George Howard for having me today. Okay, please. So the question is, what will be the 3D watch look like? So it's a good question, because in order to find out what's the time, you would have to have right now your watch shows you the scalar value, right? But you would need to have you would have 3 coordinates of time, so your watch would have to give you the vector quantity. So you would know your cosmological time point, your very tiny or like a quantum scale time, and the regular time. So that you could have like 3 different numbers instead of just 1. Similarly, like I mentioned, the mass appears to have like a different unit. If you express the equations of energy and the mass, then your mass will be in second cubes instead of like kilograms. The question is what time it is now, and it's an interesting, because one thing that the question is, I mean, do you still have do you now have possibility, for example, to travel back in time? But this is by defining this time as a 3D, there is still you still cannot go back in time or into a future, because the only thing what is happening that now you have the time is like in a 3D, but both the cosmological scale or the quantum scale or interaction scale, they are all like going from the origin. So there is still this like a arrow of time, which is from the beginning of the creation of the universe, just moving to the future. So I don't know if it answered your question. Thank you for the question. What, on in the back? Yes. It's always now, but it's now, which is different when you are experiencing the cosmological scale. Like if you would, for example, now inflate yourself into very large dimensions, you would start to experience this like a third time dimension. Or if you would now suddenly you would try to get to be very tiny and to be like a less than scale of the atom, then you would start to experience the first time dimension. So it's always here, all these three dimensions, but they are like a different when you are looking into a very tiny scale or very large scale. But well, this is a good question because consciousness has to do with our thinking. And there was several papers recently that showed that there is a quantum processes that are taking place when you have a neural firing. That if you go into detail of neural firing, that there may be some quantum effects that may take place that can influence our thinking. And so in this way, when you are going into that scale, there is this potential that you can experience the other, like the first dimension. And so one other thing which is coming out is that entanglement of particles, because once you have this potential of having like a different time dimensions, then it appears to be like a natural that that you can have two particles that could be connected with each other because of the possibility of this three-dimensional time. Yes? Yeah, in this case, the supersymmetry would be solvable through this like a topology or geometry of the problem. Because, for example, I mentioned that there is this charge that is defined, for example, as a rotation in this temporal space. So the charge which appears to be just one rotation in this space, and so similarly the supersymmetry now you would not need that approach through this space, because the supersymmetry was also used in order to try to make a connection between this quantum physics and the general relativity, but in this case it just comes out from the equations naturally. The question is in terms of the theory of relativity. When you have a really fast speed, there is a clear indication that the clock is, for the observer, is running much slower than the clock which would be part of this, would be the traveler. And in this theory, this is just a result of this extra dimension, that this time difference appear like, let's say, if you would have a if you are in this space, right, we know that if you would try to travel in one dimension, the clock for the observer would be running much slower. And when you have the approach of this 3D time, then it's this time change is a result of the topology. So you would I'm not sure how to answer that question. Because when you look at it there's a clear connection, right? You are just using, in this case, it's just a mathematical framework. I'm just redefining, I'm just putting same thing, but I'm just giving it like a different like a scale. It's not dimension, it's a temporal dimension. And to me, it looked like that with this temporal space, you don't have that problem or there's a different expression of that time clock when you are running really fast, when you are defining in these equations. In reality, it's probably the same thing, but it's viewed differently. And I'm not sure right now how to interpret that. The lady in the yellow shirt. The question is a speed of time, which is a very interesting question, right? How to define the speed of time? In here we said that there is still this one unique arrow of time, which in this case is defined in this 3D network. So there is this cosmological scale, quantum scale, and this scale that we are familiar with. And so that vector appears to grow with the constant speed, but it can have a rotational effect, which would be the thing which are responsible for generation of mass, generation of the charges, and generation, for example, of these phenomena like a dark matter and dark energy. Dark energy is also related to that expansion of the universe. This lady in the white. The question is if the time is merging or splitting. In this case, it's just not a scalar, it's a vector. And so it's the same, like this general speed of the arrow of time appears to be, at least looks like it could be constant, but there will be like a different rotational phenomena, which would then have these effects, as I indicated, like a time, like a mass and charge generation. Yes? Well, it's a very good question. The question is if time is in motion, and the time in this network is a vector which is that is constantly growing. But the vector, because it is in this 3D space, can make anomalies or because of the rotation, and that's what would be generating some of these phenomena that has to do with the generation of the particles and generation of the charge. But in this case, I'm assuming that it's just a constantly growing arrow of time. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a measurement, right? What kind of measurement we would need to design in order to show that there is such a phenomena. And one thing that you would think that maybe there is some kind of anisotropy, and we don't. In this case, I don't know. Like, is there a certain direction in which the time speed is very different than the other, and I don't know. This would be designed, it would have to be proposed for the experiment, for example, to measure microwave anisotropy of the field, or try to figure out what would be the best proof in order to show that the time really has more than one dimension. Sorry, yeah. Well, it's a very good question, and it's touching number of like a philosophical concept. Like there was the one that was defined like yesterday, or shown that there was a kind of what's our soul? I mean, life and soul, right? And so there was this notion. A lot of people think that there was this idea that maybe you are imprinting the hydrogen atoms, and somehow the hydrogen atoms are carrying out our way of thinking, or the information that you acquired during your lifetime. And then there is this immortality of this framework, or the intelligence. So in this case, I like to think that, for example, that the life, as we know of, people are discussing when the life originated, right? But from the point of view that was presented yesterday, it looked like the origin of the universe is the same thing like origin of life, that once you got the universe to be born, then there is this framework of interaction, like interaction system, that if you have some two interaction quantities, and you cannot really separate those quantities because there is this interaction, that interaction is defined as a life, or as a kind of very primitive consciousness. And so once you expand this network, this interaction network, for example, us, right, we think that we are intelligent, right, or whatever, but there is a lot of interactions and in our body, but there is also interaction between our neighbors, the people that are around us. And that interactions could be viewed that this is actually, like a life form that we are creating here on Earth that appears to be connected to the space around us. But that's kind of like a more philosophical question. What's the immortality, and what happens like when we die? What's our consciousness, and how our consciousness is being projected, for example, into these three time dimensions? And I think that's another like a motivation for me, because I like to think about in this way also, right? And I'm hoping maybe thinking in a different way about time also helps me to solve consciousness issue. The person and yep. It's very similar like in here, where you had a homogeneous time, and you express this time in all three directions like homogeneously. So in this case, you have just one dimension, and you use the time dimension to project the dimensions into those, to create the three dimensions that we are experiencing. So it's just that the dimension is just used as like I said, when you are the fish in the ocean, you are just not experiencing the composition of the water, but in this case, you are basically projecting or creating this three-dimensional space using this three temporal network. So you are just using one dimension, and you are projecting it in order to have this like a thinking of this notion that this looks like three-dimensional space, but it's really projection through this temporal framework. So this is probably the most difficult part of this concept, that you just take this one constant dimensions, and then I just taking it and you are creating this world that we are living in. In a way, it's a projection, or it's a transformational magic. You are transforming one dimension into that what appear like a three spatial dimensions using this time network. Yes? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. So the question is if I'm using, how I'm using frequency in terms of the location, in terms of the space. Well, the frequency means that there is some periodicity, right? And I was, the periodicity means that there is some cyclicity, and cyclicity could be, for example, related to generation of the mass or generation of the particle. So in a way, the location could be defined using the approach that you mentioned. Yeah.
Does time potentials end up coming up more where there's like a tug of war between two times?
And so, as a part of it, there's a time potential that, of course, you can, once you have a three-dimensional network and you have these clusters of energy, which should be defined as a different rotation in this temporal network, that would create, of course, potential between one space to the other.
Okay, one last question. Do you come up with a speed of instant?
Speed of instant. So
You have a distance from, say, from me to the wall. There has to be a speed at which I can go so fast I close the distance instantly. Can you come up with something like that in this with all this time?
I think I can, but I would have to look into detail. It seems to be logical, but I cannot say for sure. Thanks for your questions. I appreciate it. The lady in the black shirt? So the question is, if we have this is defined like a left-handed system, right? Based on the origin of this universe, it looks like left-handed. So there was some origin of time, right? And this universe started to run. And your question is, if I consider that there may be another origin of time somewhere else, and that origin of time would have a definition of this chirality exactly opposite. Well, I think it's possible. It's only hard to imagine, because once you you define origin of time, you cannot really think about what would be happening before the origin of time, because time did not exist. So it's to me it looked like you would not. It's not possible, because once you have time start running, then you are existing in this time environment, and it's kind of difficult to imagine that there will be something like a symmetrical. But this is just my thinking right now. Maybe in the future I will change my mind. Yes? Was that the game? Some sort of game? Okay, very good. I need to study that. The question is that at the end, before Einstein died, that he was looking into similar dimension, in a similar way of expressing the time in more dimensions? With torsion field. I'm not aware of it, and I'll look into it. Thank you. Thank you for the comment. Yep. Well, I think this concept could allow this kind of a holographic, because you are projecting the dimensions into like a spatial dimensions into different time dimensions. So in a way, the holograph is also like a different type of projection. So that could be maybe that could allow some of the things that you mentioned. I think it's a great comment, and I really appreciate it, because I think this concept allows to target the consciousness and try to figure out how it relates to what we are thinking and about our existence. So I really appreciate your comment. Thank you. Well, thank you again. It's 10 o'clock, so I want to make sure that and I really appreciate your questions on this difficult topic. Thank you.